What's going on, Halloween fans? My name's Dave McRae. So in this video, I want to give you my basic premise for what I would have done with the story of Halloween Ends. Now, if you watched my live stream, which is the video right before this one, it's about 2.5 hours long. I gave you my first impression thoughts of Halloween Ends, and they were epic. We dove deep. I think for the first hour is when I gave you all my thoughts and all the nitty-gritty details of how I felt about the movie, and then the last like 90 minutes, we dove into the Q&A, and you guys were asking questions, and we were diving into it together, and it was a lot of fun. So if you haven't checked that out and you want the nitty-gritty details, I would go and check that out. But this video is about the direction that I would have taken the story in Halloween Ends. What would I have done? Now, full disclosure, I'm not a fan of Halloween Ends. Now, I don't hate the movie. I don't loathe the movie, which I'm sure is upsetting to some of my viewers who wish that I did, because it would just help to confirm how they feel. But I don't. But I don't think it's a very good Halloween movie at all. And I do not like the way they handled Michael Myers at all. But there were some interesting story beats that they introduced, but have left me perplexed as to why they would choose this movie as the vehicle to introduce those story beats in. Why would you choose the movie that is the third chapter in a trilogy? Why would you choose the movie that is the third act in your story? Why would you choose the movie that is supposed to be the ending of an era and one of the greatest horror icons in the history of motion pictures, and this is the story you decide to tell? That's what we're going to go with here, folks. It's not a bad story in and of itself, but it's not a Halloween story. It's not a Michael Myers story, and it should have been. Now, obviously, I do understand, what they were going for in terms of the social commentary and Corey Cunningham and, the evil and the transference and, changing shape and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I understand the whole thing, but you don't necessarily have to do that story and put so much focus on a brand new character and not really sort of the core of what we've built up from with these last two movies to deliver the same kind of social commentary, if that's what you're really worried about. So this is what I would have done. If this was presented to me in the writing room, I would have said, hey guys, cool idea, but I don't know if it's right for this story, for this movie. Let's put that over here because maybe it might become a cool anthology piece, maybe a movie or an episode of TV or something, like Tales from Haddonfield, the Corey Cunningham story or something. Who knows? Maybe Malik would like to hear about it. Or maybe it doesn't become anything related to Halloween and it's just, maybe it becomes its own movie, unrelated at some point. Who knows? But I don't think we should do that here. And if they had said, okay, Dave, all right, well, what do you think we should do? Well, I would say the first thing I'd like to do is get rid of Corey Cunningham and shift focus from Corey Cunningham, how we were going to lean so heavily into his story, and shift it over to Laurie Strode. And one of the things that I do like about what they have in Halloween Ends, and you get touches of this in 18, and you certainly see it in Kills, is this idea of the paranoia in the town of Haddonfield, right? It's now been 4 years. Michael walked off into the ether. Nobody knows where he is. People are looking over their shoulders and things like that. Like, what's going on, right? Every suicide they see, every murder they see, they think there's a chance it could be him, all that kind of stuff. But I would shift focus from Corey, because he doesn't exist. There's no such thing as a Corey Cunningham character in my story, and put it all on Laurie and Hawkins and Allison and Lindsay. So I would go back to the 4 core that is from the previous 2 movies. That is your canonical connective tissue where the focus should be, so it feels like you are still living in the same universe and still connected to what we have come from. And that's very important because we need to feel that the previous 2 movies are connected to this third installment. We can feel them, we can smell them, we can taste them, right? It's the same universe. And as it is right now with Halloween Ends, I don't feel any of that. So I think it's very important that we feel that. Now, when it comes to Laurie Strode, we get glimpses of this in Halloween Ends, but because the focus is so much on Corey Cunningham, it's only fleeting. And the perfect example of it, of course, is when Laurie has that run-in with the lady at the grocery store. But I think it's important that we lean heavily into the residual effects that Laurie is experiencing and feeling and dealing with the people of Haddonfield and how they're not big fans of her. I mean, she used to be the crazy lady that lived on the peripheral outside of town, and now she's living in town, and they blame her for a lot of stuff. Michael Myers is gone. They blame her. So it's really important that we see more of this, because we're, again, shifting focus and putting it back on the star, putting it back on the final girl, Laurie Strode, because that's what this is all about. Laurie and Michael and Laurie, right? And we're seeing this. We're seeing what she's dealing with. Now, you can still have her in the same position in life, right? Trying to move on, writing her memoir, all that kind of stuff. Keep that stuff. That's good stuff. That's fine. But more of what she's dealing with. Now, when it comes to Hawkins, I would have Laurie and Hawkins actually dating. I want more of Hawkins. Will Patton is such a terrific character actor, but so underutilized in this trilogy. And I would absolutely have them now dating. And the town is not really happy about it. And Hawkins may have lost some friends or acquaintances because why? Well, he's dating the crazy lady. He's dating Laurie Strode. And so he's getting some heat from people. He's lost some friendships or whatever the case is, but he loves her. He's known her for decades. And he's like, no, she's not like that, goddammit. And maybe we see certain things that he's had to deal with as well, right? Maybe he's blamed for certain things. Who knows? Do people know about what happened in 78 when he shot that cop? Do they not? Is that secret out in the open now? Is it not? Like, who knows, right? The guilt that he's been feeling with that kind of stuff. That would be interesting. Now, when it comes to Allison, same thing. She's the granddaughter of the crazy lady Laurie Strode. So you can only imagine what she's had to deal with. And maybe she's blamed for certain things. Maybe, Cameron's death, Oscar's death. I mean, who knows, right? She's had to deal with her own struggles. And there's different ages there as well, right? She's going through a lot of stuff at a very young age as well. And there's a lot of things she's dealing with, and she still wants to get out of fucking town. Who knows, right? There's a lot of things that she's dealing with. The death of her mother, the death of her father, all that kind of stuff. And Lindsay, it's about loyalty, right? Lindsay, is sort of, maybe she's kind of the odd one out a little bit, but she feels a loyalty to Laurie and that friendship and what they've been through. And they're both survivors of Michael Myers. And because she maintains that friendship with Laurie, she's kind of looked at maybe not too favorably. But this is where that social commentary aspect from Halloween Ends currently is still there. Now, obviously, certain things are going to change because it's no longer about a guy getting, possessed by Michael Myers. But the core of the commentary about the town and evil and paranoia and what happens when, that paranoia builds and builds and builds, and how Michael has affected these people consciously and subconsciously in their behaviors and all that kind of stuff. Why would you treat people like that? And that is still there, and you can still have that. But the focus has shifted back to the core group of characters left over from the first two movies to keep that connective tissue there. Now, full disclosure, Michael Myers doesn't make an appearance in my story until a little bit later too. But because we've shifted focus back to the core group of characters that you already have an emotional attachment to and investment in, and maybe even on a nostalgic level as well when it comes to Laurie and Lindsay for sure, right? You accept it, and you accept it because the dynamics are interesting. We're back in sort of that universe again. We feel connected to the previous two movies, so it's going to work. So that's sort of the foundation and where we begin the story 4 years later. And we're seeing this play out as we're reintroduced to these characters through the first act and, maybe the first bit of the second act and things like that. But this whole time, the paranoia is continuing to build and get thicker and thicker and thicker the closer we get to Halloween. It feels like the closer Halloween is getting to us on the calendar, the paranoia is getting bigger and bigger and bigger and more intense. And there's a lot of different creative ways we can show that in the town, right? And what our core four sort of has to deal with. Now, what that represents overall symbolically is Michael getting closer and closer and closer. His return is inevitable, right? He's about to make his return. And the more intense the paranoia gets, it just means that Michael is getting closer and closer and closer to coming back. Now, we don't spell that out, but we can play around with it and sort of communicate that to our audience through the use of cinematic language. And it would be really fascinating to see that kind of play out. And it begins to dawn on Laurie and our core four that maybe the only way to really restore, like something weird is going on here, and to really restore Haddonfield back to the town it was before 1978 and prove to these people that we're not your enemy. And maybe we even see Lindsay and Allison begin to fight with each other a little bit. Like it starts to get contagious with even in the core four. And Laurie's the one that's like, guys, what are we doing? Like, what are we doing here? This is crazy. You know, we can't do this, right? And Laurie's the one that says, enough. We have to go find the shape. The shape is still out there. And the fact that he's still out there is causing this. We need to take the fight to the shape, right? So now this little journey begins, like this little adventure. I don't mean adventure like, National Treasure adventure. I just mean like this quest begins to try and find where the shape is. And through that process, there's conversations they have about, what is the shape and who were his parents and what happened to Michael when he was 6 years old. And obviously we never find out those answers, but just to see these characters having those conversations is really cool and neat. Do you know what I mean? And maybe they go to the library and they sift through the microfilm or whatever, right? But they set out on this quest because they feel that if we can defeat the shape, if we can prove to the town that we have defeated the shape, Michael will no longer have a hold over the town. He will no longer have a hold over us. And we're beginning to fight now with each other. It's just getting worse, right? And of course, Halloween is fast approaching. They go out, but they don't really, they try to find him. They might find certain things where they think maybe he's been, but who knows? There's lots of ways we can explore that. But Halloween is just around the corner. And at this point, they've exhausted all their resources. They've tried to find the shape. They can't find him. Nobody's talking to them. They feel defeated, right? And the next day is Halloween, let's say, and they wake up in the morning and it's a cloudy, gloomy day and there's a storm on the horizon rolling on in. Oh, you didn't think my idea wouldn't have a storm, did you? Oh yeah, that's right. The storm is rolling on in, and the storm rolls in as it gets into the evening time, and the rain begins to fall and lightning begins to flash and thunder begins to crack, and Michael shows back up and he starts a killing spree through the town. And this is all happening unbeknownst to our core four, right? Now, Frank and Laurie and Allison, they all live together. And Lindsay is spending the night there because she doesn't want to be home alone, right? So she's kind of maybe crashing on the couch or something like that. And they all decide to go to bed. They don't know what's going on out there. They decide to go to bed. Now it's like maybe 1 o'clock in the morning. Now, I know technically it's November 1st, but for all intents and purposes, it's still Halloween night. I mean, look, even the vast majority of Halloween 2 from 1981 probably happened at, on November the 1st at like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, right? Certainly that chase scene with Laurie banging on the hospital door, I'm pretty sure that's probably like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. Anyways. So it's like 1 o'clock in the morning. They've all gone to bed. It's teeming rain outside. The thunder is rolling. The lightning is illuminating, things. And all of a sudden, they hear this blood-curdling scream from their next door neighbor. And maybe this is a neighbor that we were introduced to earlier in the film, and she seemed like a sweet person. But they hear this blood-curdling scream, and Laurie sits up in bed, and we just see the silhouette, of her face in bed next to her window. And she turns to Frank, like, Frank. And Frank's like, oh, yeah, I heard that too. What's going on? And they're like, Alice, wait, oh my God, what's going on? And they hear like, what's going on? And you just hear the thunder outside, and they go over there and they're banging on. They're like, Mrs. Johnson, are you okay? And the rain's teeming down, and there's no music. It's just the elements. And they, break into her house and they find her dead. And Laura's just like, oh my God, it's happening. It's here. The evil is here, Frank. You know, and they're all, you know, like, oh my God, what do we, you know, oh my God, yes, you know, what's happening, you know, and maybe they go back to their own house to, you know, to get the guns from the gun cabinet or something. I have no idea, right? You know, to arm themselves, and they go out into the street, but they're dealing with the elements, right? The lightning, the rain, the thunder, you know, there's nobody out. It's quiet, you know, and they got to try and track him down, and they're going from door to door into homes and things like that. And they discover all, you know, sorts of dead bodies and shit and friends and people they know. And it's like, what the fuck is going on? You know what I mean? All the while the storm is out there, and we see like both sides. Like we see them chasing Michael down, but we also see Michael delivering really cool kills and lurking and stalking these people and shit. Like, man, it would be so fucking cool to see that stuff. And they're always kind of one step behind Michael, right? Very similar to kind of what I was talking about in my Halloween 2018 sequel concept idea video, but we bring that kind of thing into this. And instead of having Tommy and Brackett, you have Hawkins and Lindsay, you know, and Allison is there too. But it's all building to a moment where Laurie and Michael face off. They face each other, and it's one hell of a battle, man. Maybe Frank gets in on it, but he gets injured, so he's unable to do anything. Maybe he's knocked unconscious. Maybe Lindsay's killed. Who knows, right? And Allison is injured as well. I mean, it's all building towards this moment. And you could even keep the ending of Halloween Ends as it is right now if you want. I mean, you know, if you wanted to, you know, still have all the townspeople come out and they take him to the junkyard and they put him into the, you know, the machine, you could do that, or you could do it another way. Maybe he's burned. Do you know what I mean? And because he's dead, they've slit his wrists, they've slit his throat, he's bled out. So he is dead, but now they burn his body instead. Perhaps that might be interesting against, you know, the illumination of the lightning. But even the junkyard would be cool, kind of hearing the thunder and things like that. Like there's so many different ways that you could go about it. But then of course there's a resolution, right? And, you know, we cut to the next day and, you know, maybe the sun is out, it's a blue sky. The spell that Michael Myers has had over the town of Haddonfield has lifted. People, and you can feel it. There's a breath of kind of like a relief. You know, you can really feel. Obviously, there wasn't a literal spell. It's metaphorical. But people now see what Laurie was able to do. They recognize how she was able to sacrifice herself, not the ultimate sacrifice necessarily, but sacrifice herself by putting herself in harm's way to put an end to the hold that Myers has on the town, right? It's all metaphorical. It's not like there's a literal spell he's cast, and to be fair, I mean, it's not like in the current Halloween Ends, you know, they don't allude to those likely resolutions for Laurie and the town, and that she's probably accepted now and, you know, things are okay, because they do. But at the end of the day, I think what I've presented here is more in line with the trajectory of what this film needed, in my opinion. No matter which way that you go towards the end, the foundation of what I'm talking about in terms of the trajectory and where we shift focus is all about making it feel connected to the two films that have come before, making it feel like a Halloween movie again, and implementing and injecting that suspense and that atmosphere that I think was solely missing from this third and final chapter. So those are my thoughts, folks. Those are my thoughts. And I shot from the hip today, more than I thought I was going to. I had sort of, you know, the idea in my head, but that's what I would do. You know, that's the movie I want to see. That's the third act. That's the conclusion that would be, and as you can see, there's some things that I take from what Halloween Ends already has, right? Like maybe we use a similar kind of ending, you know, and you know, we pull from certain things, but the core foundation of the story, you shift focus and get back to making it feel like it's part of this universe you've created with these characters we've become attached to, with this kind of direction and the blood-curdling scream. Oh, what's going on? You know, fuck, man. Fuck. I'd be in the theater going, oh. You know what I mean? Make it scary. Make it scary. Yeah, that's what I would do. Anyways, folks, my name's Dave McRae. Comment below and let me know your thoughts. What did you think about what I had to say here today? Or maybe you don't like it at all. Maybe you love Halloween Ends the way it is, and you're like, nah, I think I'd keep it the way it is. And that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But as somebody that was disappointed in the direction that they went, this, I think, is more in line with a Halloween film. And I think it would have delivered the goods, personally. Of course, I'm biased because I came up with the idea, but you know, it is what it is. Comment below and let me know your thoughts. If you want to follow me on social media, you can. There are my links right there. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. All my links are in the description. Check them out until your heart's content. And when your heart is content, check them out again. That'll do it for me. In the meantime and in between time, I will talk to you soon. Cheers.